Like many other Spurs fans, I'm sure, I had trouble sleeping on Monday night. Not through any disappointment at failing to get the 3 points, but something more important, a feeling that I, as a Spurs fan, haven't felt as intensely since that day in '91 at Wembley, but feel in abundance this season. Pride. Pride that our team aren't celebrating a draw at home as our result of the season. Pride that, unlike others, I can't think of one member of our team who feels the need to roll around 15 times with a broken fingernail. Pride that our fans don't organise half-hearted protests in a half-empty stadium and then protest against the protest, which then in itself becomes a protest. Pride that our team doesn't play with the chips on their shoulders or hatred that so many other teams seem to play with. Pride that our team will be moving into a stadium that we actually own, as opposed to a rented arena clad in team colours and funded at the expense of the taxpayer. And most of all, pride that our bright, ambitious team will be fighting at the top long after Leicester and become tomorrow's fish and chip wrapping. This is your e-Spurs podcast.
Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs!
Hi guys, welcome back to the e-Spurs podcast, your weekly fix of all things THFC. How are you feeling after that one on Monday night? Whether you're a regular listener or joining us for the first time, welcome along to the e-Spurs podcast. Don't forget, guys, to subscribe via iTunes or Acast if you prefer, to get every new episode direct as it's released. We're also across your social media platforms on Twitter and Instagram at e_Spurs, and you can check us out and like us on facebook.com/e-Spurs page. We're also on Google+, YouTube, Pinterest, Tumblr, the lot, so just hit our website www.e-Spurs.blogspot.co.uk, and all of the links are there for you on the website. A new website address coming your way very shortly, by the way, that's a lot easier to remember than that one, but www.e-Spurs.blogspot.co.uk for that. Tonight on the e-Spurs podcast, we'll be looking back at the Battle of the Bridge on Monday night. I'll be putting your social media questions to the panel on all things THFC, and to finish, we'll preview our final home game of the season at the weekend against Pochettino's old side, Southampton. So loads to talk about and get our teeth into on the podcast tonight, guys. I think we've just about recovered from Monday night's antics at the Bridge, and we'll find out the thoughts of the e-Spurs team in just a moment. Before that, a couple of reminders for everybody, and we're still on the lookout for new writers to add to our existing team on the e-Spurs website. So if you're a serious writer or a fan looking for a new hobby, get in touch with us, guys. We're looking for writers to provide us with opinion pieces, match reviews and previews. So if all that sounds like something you'd be interested in, get in touch with us via email at e-spurs@live.co.uk. Great opportunity to have your thoughts read by Spurs fans out there. Also, once again, guys, as we played on Monday night this week, there'll be a slight delay in getting the podcast out this week. So the e-Spurs podcast will fall on the Wednesday this week. And once again, your Extra Time show will fall on the Saturday. And this week on Extra Time, we'll be asking whether you would rather play next season's Champions League games. And we can now say next season's Champions League games as opposed to possible Champions League games. Would you rather play them at a reduced capacity White Hart Lane in our final season there, or as suggested at Wembley? So a really good one for you guys to get your teeth into this week, and we'll be finding out the thoughts of the team. So to kick off the podcast tonight, let's introduce these three Spurs fans ready to talk us through Monday night's game and all things THFC. As always, it's Jason, Ricky and Ian. How you doing, lads?
All right, mate. I'm just waiting for my letter from the FA to say I'm suspended as well. I don't want to feel left out.
I tell you what, Jace, you'd be in good company if you were after that game on Monday night. Bit tasty, that one.
Yeah, it looks a bit pinicky, didn't it? A bit tasty, that's for sure.
Well, at times I thought I was watching a boxing match with a side of a football game going on.
Well, we definitely won the boxing matches anyway.
Well, at least we won something. No, really good game on Monday night. Huge amount of pride, I'm sure all Spurs fans feel out there, not just about Monday night, but the game, but the season in itself. And let's get the thoughts of the team on that. So Spurs, Chelsea, Monday night at the Bridge. Jace, first of all, would you share the sentiments of pride from that game?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the disappointment, I suppose, is we definitely lost our heads, didn't it? I mean,
yeah. We
have to admit that. We let the emotion get to us, and we probably let the crowd and that get to us. And it was a disappointment having gone there and gone 2-0 up, not to end that hideous record there. But you know, so it's also worth remembering that in amongst all the disappointment, we did get that vital point, which does make that Champions League group stage automatic. So, you know, it wasn't a complete disaster, although it feels like it probably to most people. But I think if you'd have said there, we'll go to Stamford Bridge and get the point that gives us group stage of the Champions League status a few weeks ago, we'd have probably taken that anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, I mean, if we focus on the game first of all, because there's so much other stuff for us to talk about that went on as a sideshow, as we say. But if we focus on the game first of all to begin with, Jace, we were completely in control, you say, at half-time, 2-0 up, looking the best side. What for you was the turning point?
I don't know. I would love to know what was said in the dressing room at half-time, because... We, you know, I don't quite know where we started to lose our heads. You know, probably it was spiky before that, wasn't it? And then you had the big thing with Danny Rose and William and Pochettino getting involved, and you know, it's hard to know where we completely came out. And Hazard obviously coming on changes it a little bit, but we just completely lost our focus, I thought, after that point. And you know, perhaps we lacked that proper bit of leadership on the pitch to get everyone just to calm down and maybe play a little bit slower tempo and just keep the ball and knock it around and try and draw some of the sting. But we definitely lost the plot and got caught up in what Chelsea wanted us to be doing, but which was disappointing and something that we definitely have to learn a lesson from.
Yeah, I mean, they were all really hyped for last night's game, weren't they? You could see even Pochettino on the touchline. I haven't seen him like that before, that hyped up for a game. Rick, could you argue maybe that they were, in some respects, maybe too pumped up for this one?
Possibly. I mean, do you know what? For so many years, Spurs have been labelled a soft touch, so part of me felt a bit of pride in there, seeing the Spurs side really going at them.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I have to agree with what Jay said in the fact that we just completely lost our heads, and on and off the pitch, to be honest with you. I think the turning point really was who was going to get the third goal, and the fact Chelsea got it. I just thought that we seemed to get very, very nervous, and 2-0 enough at Stamford Bridge. I thought, bearing in mind, you look at this season, how we've done so well in command of leads. We've not dropped too many points from winning positions away from home, so it was disappointing to lose a 2-0 lead. And I think what frustrated me the most was that even when it came back to 2-2, we still had a good 10-15 minutes that we could have really imposed ourselves on their goal. And it never really came out. We just kind of lost ourselves in the game. And to be honest with you, in a way, I'm quite glad Ali didn't play, because God knows what kind of suspension he would have been looking at if he did play. But I have to mention one player, and that player is Toby Alderweireld. Didn't make a foul all game. And he's really, for me, the only Spurs player out there that kept his head while others lost theirs. And I think what we need to bear in mind is that he's such an important player to us, even for the obviously Southampton game and the game at the end of the season. We may still need the 6 points to finish above Arsenal and secure second. So hopefully his injury is not too bad. It looked quite bad when he went off, but fingers crossed, hopefully it's not going to be too bad. And obviously we've got Dembele and Rose also with concerns. I mean, what frustrated me last night was Dembele with his actions in, with what he'd done to Costa. Again, as a Spurs fan, you could argue and say, look, you love seeing that side to your players, but after seeing what happened to Ali last week, I don't see what would have, made Dembele snap. It would have been the one thing Poch would have said to the players, especially now with the fact the retrospective action is there in place. You've got to be careful. So, listen, we're going to go into a Southampton game, possibly with missing Rose, missing Alderweireld, Dembele, no Dele Alli. Could be Mason and Carroll, which is a bit alarming. But on the game itself, I have to say, unbelievable sense of pride. I can't, stress how proud I am of this Tottenham side and, what we've achieved. It's a shame, we had to inevitably lose the title, if you like, to Chelsea. But I think, like I've said on previous shows, if I'm being honest with you, I think we lost it way before that. I think we had a great chance against Arsenal and West Ham, 2 opportunities to hit top. We didn't do neither. But what I can guarantee is that I think next season we'll come back even stronger. And I've said previously on pods that we're only really 2 or 3 players away at best from really going again. And I'm sure Poch will already have an earmark in terms of what he wants to bring in. So, no, future's bright. Very, very bright.
It certainly is. A couple of things I take from last night that I was pretty glad over. They were the fact that Leicester didn't win the title through them winning a game, it took us losing a game. I suppose you can take a little bit of pleasure from that. I certainly did, that it took us losing for Leicester to win a title. That might ruin the end of Jamie Vardy's movie a little bit. And also the performance they put in, because as you say, we were so used to Spurs sides just rolling over, and even at 2-0 up, you kind of got the feeling that I think we all knew Chelsea was still very much in the game. Being a Spurs fan teaches you that. So, you kind of, a big part of me expected Chelsea to come back into it at some point. So it wasn't any huge surprise, but the fight they put in was fantastic to see. And I mean, Ian, it seemed to turn, as Jay pointed out earlier, Danny Rose went off, we made a substitution, Hazard came on. The game seemed to swing from that point on, didn't it? Having said that, we had a very good chance in Ryan Mason, and at that point, the game would have been out of Chelsea's reach.
Yeah, totally agree. I think watching from the stands, it definitely changed when Hazard come on. I think he gave them a little bit more width, a little bit more sort of guile in the attack, and I think we didn't react to it, and I think it wasn't a surprise to anyone that after what has been a pretty poor and mediocre season from Hazard, that he sort of scores the equalising goal. I think that from our point of view, as we were watching Mason go through, I'm thinking, well, he's got a score here, and I don't think he gets enough power on the shot for it to elude Begovic, and I think he just, I think if he'd have gone with for total power, then I think it would have taken the net out. Yeah,
it's the sort of chance you want a Kane or
yes.
Dele Alli on the end of, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. But just to correct, some of the things that were said earlier on, we didn't lose the game last night, and we got a point, and that point, secured our Champions League position. We're not going to have that horrible situation where we've got to go into playoffs for it, or we are undone by another British winner.
Yeah.
So I'm really proud, and as the lads have said, about how the team have acquitted themselves this season. And yes, we did lose our heads last night, but however, sometimes as a Spurs fan who wants to see a player fight for the shirt, they definitely fought for the shirt last night. And yes, they showed a bit of naivety. I get that, but they are a young side, and I think that next season they'll be able to sort of channel those bully boy tactics in a positive way to make them play the game more effectively and more clinically when they go forward.
In terms of we've spoken about the sideshow, if you like, of the game, and so much went on last night. It almost, as I say, turned it into a bit of a boxing match. There was so much that went on. Started with the incident on the touchline. Pochettino was surrounded, wasn't he, during one incident. It then went on to half time when there was the eye scratch, which came from Kyle Walker. Jay, I mean, where do you stand on this one? Can you understand there being so much, with so much at stake, can you understand there being that level of aggression?
Well, I think you can understand that there's so much at stake, that everyone's hungry and the desire's there, and it's a frantic atmosphere, and everyone wants to make sure they stand their ground and things. But sometimes you just, the best sides keep cool under most pressure, doesn't it? It doesn't matter which sport you're in. The best players at any sport are the ones that manage to keep their cool under the most provocation, and just kind of ignore it all. We didn't want to go and get bullied there. I'm certainly quite happy for Tottenham to go and show plenty of fight and spirit, but we let it get to us. It went too far. So that was the sad part.
Yeah, it's having said that, it's nice to see somebody stand up to Diego Costa, isn't it? That's, I suppose you can take that from it. But absolutely agree.
No, absolutely. But if you think back to right at the start of the season when he had the bust up in the Arsenal game,
yeah,
and we all said that time, all Spurs fans said, why on earth did Gabriel allow Diego Costa to wind him up, and he should never have bit in the first place? And so we all took great delight in watching Gabriel get sent off that day. And yesterday it was our turn to keep cool and keep a cool head, and unfortunately we just couldn't do it. But you don't want to criticise them too much. It's not like we've done that too often this season. It's a one-off, but it's a harsh lesson to learn. We've seen it with Dele Alli last week getting a ban, and we may well see Lamela get a ban today and Dembele get a ban, and fingers crossed it doesn't end up costing us and we end up dropping points and losing that second spot because of suddenly having 4 or 5 people out suspended.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a point that's been almost lost a little bit, isn't it? That we still got to fight. Although we're second, there's still two games to go, and we still got to fight for it.
Yeah, absolutely. It would cruel now to miss out on the certainly on finishing second, but it would definitely be a real blow if we ended up not holding off the South London club. But hopefully the FA will be a little bit lenient. I fear Dembele will go, possibly Lamela. I know Ian has the view that Fabregas slid his hand under Lamela's boot, so hopefully Ian's going to go at the FA and protest for us. I have a horrible feel that Lamela could go and Carl Walker even for his little flip. It wouldn't surprise you if he goes and Pochettino ends up with a touchline ban for running onto the pitch. Yeah. So all sorts of things could happen, but let's hope a good record stands us in good stead.
Yeah, it might be a rather interesting team we put out on Sunday. Great point, I think, and the thing that I think has stuck in most Spurs fans' memory from this game, Rick, just to round off from Monday night, is the fact that Chelsea was celebrating a draw at home against us as if they'd just won the league.
It just shows, Andy, listen, they may have won the Champions League, Europa League, Premier League, but you can't take out the small time of football fans at certain clubs. And by far, Chelsea fans, well, half of them are plastic anyway. They only came into existence since Abramovich took over, let's remember that. And number two, I mean, listen, the Spurs fans last night, they, Ian was there. I wasn't lucky enough to get a ticket, but it just seemed the reaction at full time. You never thought we just lost the title. It was such a phenomenal atmosphere. Yes. And I think nights like last night makes you proud to be Spurs. And I think sometimes there's that famous quote that says, I didn't pick Spurs, Spurs chose me. And I think as a Spurs fan, sometimes you feel that way because we have certain things that happen in our club. Listen, we might not win titles, we might not win many cups, but we get moments of brilliance. And sometimes those moments of brilliance can overshadow a cup in a way because we've been blessed to have over the years such great flair players, but we've never been blessed to have such a great football team, and that's something we have now. And we have to hope that obviously with Poch now obviously verbally agreeing a new 5-year deal, that Levy really has kind of bought into this whole point now of stability, giving a manager time. I think a lot of people have alluded to the fact that the Tottenham squad very much kind of resembles the 92 squad which Fergie, kind of built under United really. And I think the future's very, very bright if we can keep this team together. I don't see why any Spurs player would want to be moving on, if I'm being completely honest with you. I said it before that Leicester may very well be the champions, but if you're a footballer in the summer that wants to come to the Premier League, you want to come to an ambitious club, I don't think you even think about a decision between Tottenham and Leicester. There's only one club you're going to choose. And what I do want to mention is last night, and I think many fans will feel the same, that Sky's coverage, I don't know if it's Sky, just Sky in particular that I'm picking on, but just overall, I just think Spurs haven't been recognised the way Leicester have been. And listen, I've got no bitterness. Leicester have deserved the league. Let me make that clear. Leicester have deserved the league. They've grounded out the results. They've handled the pressure. We haven't. The stats don't lie. We've drawn 13 games this season. And a team that wants to win the title, you can't draw that many games. So Leicester have got it over the line. But I will say the point again that for me, we've been the most complete team. We've played the best football. It's just a shame from our perspective that we haven't done what Leicester have done and managed to grind out the results, because I don't want this Spurs team to be forgotten. And I just hope in the seasons to come that we are going to get some silverware, because this Tottenham team are too special to not win anything. And again, I think last night goes to prove that unless you support Spurs, you grow up with this concept that we're widely hated by all opposing fans. But now I think we're hated because teams actually fear us, and that's the most special thing of all.
Yeah, and it's lovely, isn't it? It's lovely when that comes about, and it's done in such a way, as I mentioned at the top of the show, where you can be proud of how we play. We don't try and get opponents, not that I notice, or I certainly haven't seen anything that would support that we try and get opponents sent off. Unlike other teams, we don't go about it with the Vardy-esque anger in our eyes, every refereeing decision that goes against us. We do things with a sense of class, and I think to a large extent that's brought about by the manager. You guys have mentioned the manager already tonight, and the class that he has. And I'll be the first to admit, when Pochettino took over at Spurs, I wasn't I wasn't blown away, to say the least. In fact, probably 3, 4, 5 months into his reign there, I still wasn't convinced. Having said that, how wrong can you be? He's absolutely transformed the playing side of our club and given it a sense of purpose. He's got them playing for Spurs. He's shown a commitment also with this new contract in the week. He's leading from the top. He's saying, if I can commit myself to Spurs, so can you, and that's exactly what you need. That's exactly the sort of thing Bill Nick would have done, It's just great to see. That's why I mentioned the pride, because there's so much pride at Spurs at the moment. No matter what, it's been a fantastic year. And of course, Ian, because of that fantastic year, we are once again going to hear that Champions League music at the Lane next season. You would think we're probably going to have a few ins and outs during the summer to get us ready for that. Realistically, where would you think we could go in that competition?
I think we could make the at least the knockout stages. Given if we do what Rick said earlier on, and we get some decent sort of recruits into the squad, I think it depends who we get in the group. But if we get a decent group and then we get through that and we get into the knockout stages, I can see us at least getting to where we were in 2010, 2011, at least, with quarterfinals. If we get a decent team, a decent number of recruits in. So, why shouldn't we aim for the knockout stages? And that's where we start to sort of like consolidate, hopefully, another decent league campaign with some great nights at our old ground.
Certainly gets the old hairs standing up on the back of your neck just thinking about it, doesn't it? And
I can't wait for that. I can't wait to be there and have that anthem coming out, and the logos dotted around the pitch, and 30-odd thousand Spurs fans really getting involved, because I think we would treat the competition with some respect, rather than some other English clubs who shall remain nameless.
Yeah, absolutely. I let everybody into a little secret. Jason during the week has been sending us all Champions League ringtones to prepare us for the competition. So I know I'm ready for the Champions League next season.
Yeah, I was going to wait until it was a done deal, because I didn't want to.
You cynic, you. And Jay, it doesn't it get the hairs standing up on the back of your neck? Do you share Ian's view that knockout stages is a realistic goal?
Yeah, certainly think would certainly hope to go through the group stage. Because we perhaps haven't done so well in the Europa League in recent years. We might find that we end up being pot 3 or pot 4. Could even end up being in pot 4. Because obviously Leicester go straight into pot 1, don't they, as champions? So,
yep.
We'll have to wait and see what type of draw we get. We could get, the group of death or something like that. But hopefully we'd go through the group stage, and then you're in the hands of the draw, then, aren't you, as to whether in that knockout round, if we go through. But we could go through as a group winner and have a nice easy draw. So you don't know. Let's just get into the competition. I can't wait to see the draw. Think of the excitement of the day they're going to do the draw, and you see that little piece of paper come out with Tottenham Hotspur on it, and you think, right, let's see who we get. And I just hope that we do get a really good group. I'd love to get Real Madrid or a Barcelona or a Bayern Munich in the group, because as tough are the games like that, they're the teams that you really want to see, aren't they?
Yeah,
you don't want to be in a group with Cluj when we've had lots of Europa League groups like that. So I don't mind if we get a really strong group.
Certainly something to look forward to. What a summer we've got ahead of us and next season to look forward to. Absolutely brilliant, lads, as always. And of course, don't forget to find out more about, to listen to more about our Champions League season next season and where we should play in particular. Tune into Extra Time on Saturday, where we'll be debating exactly that. Should Spurs play at a reduced capacity White Hart Lane for next season's Champions League games in our last season, of course, at White Hart Lane, or should it go to Wembley? You would think a full 90,000 Wembley Stadium Champions League games. Which would you prefer? Is it the heart or the head? Really good replies we've had to that one also, and you can listen to those on Saturday in our Extra Time show. Well worth the listen, guys. On to your questions. As always, if you listen to the show on a regular basis, guys, you'll know that each and every week we get your questions and fire them at the lads for their response on anything to do with THFC, not just the most recent game, but it can be anything you should wish to ask. So let's do exactly that and get your questions across to the lads. Tonight we go back to the Facebookers, and our questions come from the e-Spurs Facebook page. First question tonight is from Ben Ruff. It's for Rick, and he asks, should our aim next season be top 4 like that lot down the road, or should our aim be the title?
That's a good question. I think obviously every season's about progression, and after the season we've had, this is the thing for me. I think Spurs, we should always be aiming for the top, and if you go into that mentality where, well, if you have that mentality where you're just going to aim for the top 4 and you fail for the top 4, then you're going to end up 5th. So I think you always aim high. And if you aim high like we've aimed high this season, we've ended up with the feeling that Champions League, although we're so elated to have it, there's also a slight tinge of disappointment that we haven't won this league. So for me personally, why not again next season aim for the top? I've said it before, I think we're a year ahead of schedule. You look at the likes of Liverpool, United, Chelsea, City, all got new managers. They're all going to probably change their squads in the summer. We're a year ahead of all of them in terms of the philosophy. Yeah. I keep saying it on this show, not to sound like a broken record, but we're only really, for me, we only nearly need 2 or 3 players at best, Andy. If you look at the squad we've got at the moment, we need another striker. We need possibly another central defensive midfielder as backup for Dier, and possibly another midfielder in there. But apart from that, we've got such a good squad. And I really think that the sky's our limit. We should not fear any team. And that's the one thing we have been this season. We have been fearless. So in answer to the question, we shouldn't be fearing anybody. There's no reason why, again, we can't, like Poch said, push on and try and go again for the title. And there's no reason why, like I say, we can't go and do it. No reason.
Absolutely. I completely share that. Ian, is there a danger that if we set our goal next season as top 4, that in years to come we could end up like that lot down the road and relying on that 4th place trophy every year?
Oh, good question. The danger you have is that I'm sure if you were one of the Arsenal accountants, you would probably think that let's get top 4. Let's get into the Champions League because it's a good money spinner. And if you look at it, they've been quite successful in getting 3rd and 4th over the last however number of years that the competition's been running. I would hope under Pochettino that he doesn't settle for second best. And as Rick has just said, in his response, I genuinely believe that we should aim for the league title. Why not? If you don't start the season aiming for the league title, then what's the point of even having a strong pre-season and putting the effort in? If you're going to settle for 4th, then your expectations are always going to be that you're never going to win the league. So for me, I think under Poch, and with this young group of players, I think next year they will be going for the title, and why not?
Yeah, absolutely. They've certainly got age on their side, haven't they? And as you say, why not set the targets high? Ben, I hope that answers your question. From Lily Whiteland, he asked, is it just me or do other clubs seem to have a hatred towards Spurs that isn't mutual?
Well, generally, I feel like at times there is. I can only really go back to childhood, really, and there's always been that kind of feeling that scummy Spurs, Spurs this, Spurs that, you're no club, you're underachieved, you're just a team of underachievers. I don't mean to come across and sound bitter or whatever, but I think you've seen with the whole Leicester fairy tale in a way that we've pretty much... See, what I don't want to do here is try and stamp on what Leicester have done, because what they have done is no short of a miracle, and it will never be achieved again. But I still think that Spurs haven't been given the credit for what they've done, and people will argue that if you finish second, then unfortunately that's what you are. You're second, you runners up, you're easily forgotten. But I still think Spurs aren't given the credit to what they should have. And I still think, we seem to have a lot of enemies out there. Teams seem to hate us. I could never understand the West Ham rivalry, if I'm being completely honest with you. I mean, I get the fact they're a London club, but they seem to take a disliking to us. And now suddenly that's become a main derby for them. Listen, maybe we should take it as a compliment. People like to play us. But I think the main derby for us, the main derby will always be Arsenal. Because of the whole south north divide, and that's all I can say really. Let's take it as a compliment. I mean, there's not more to say, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they often say, don't they, being a London team is often the most difficult, because there are so many London derbies in there. It just seems that heightened level whenever Spurs play these teams towards us. Just seems that way.
I mean, even if you consider, Andy, just sorry quickly, that even Chelsea, Arsenal, when you consider Arsenal have consistently finished above us for the last 20 seasons, and what Arsenal have won comparative to Spurs, and yet Chelsea still feel that their bigger rival is Tottenham. That doesn't really add up, does it?
No.
So what can we say?
No, let's know what you think, guys. At e_Spurs and e-Spurs page on Facebook. As always, get in touch with your thoughts. Let us know what you guys think. Next question, last question of the night, goes to Jay, and this is from Jasmine Teffa on Facebook. And she asked, well, it's more of a statement come question, Jay, but she says, this has been our best season since ...
1987, maybe, when we were in with a little bit of a shout, and Clive Allen got his 49 goals and things like that.
Yep.
Or possibly even 1985, which was the last time I genuinely thought we could win the title, and we were level with Everton with 13 games left, 9 of which were at White Hart Lane. And we still didn't win it. And so that seems bizarre, doesn't it? 9 out of our last 13 games that year at White Hart Lane.
That's incredible.
So, but I think, you certainly got to go back that far to have a season like this. I think we all remember the year we finished 4th and got in the Champions League the first time, and we had that brilliant little run right at the end, didn't we, where we did Chelsea and Arsenal back to back and things like that, and we beat Liverpool that season, and things like that. But no, I think 85 is probably the last time I had a real feeling like this in the season.
And can we do it consistently, Jay, for you?
Well, that's the big test, isn't it? That's what we've got to do. We said on a previous pod, I think a couple of weeks ago, the big test next year is we've got to start to go on and now win a trophy and deliver something like that with it, even if it's not the league title next season.
Yeah.
We certainly got to start competing for silverware. But I every confidence that Tottenham will sustain have at least a period now where we can certainly, I think, get in the Champions League again next year, finish in that top 4, and that's what we need to do, have 3 or 4 years of real concerted pressure. And I'm sure that, we'll pick up trophies along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's be lovely to get a cup in the trophy cabinet as well next season, wouldn't it? After this season sort of fading out of the cups, be lovely to get a nice FA Cup in there, or even a League Cup in there again. Get that silverware in the cabinet, which, as we've mentioned on the podcast, is what it's all about, really. Getting that silverware in the trophy cabinet. But I'm sure they will. Fantastic stuff, lads. And thank you guys for getting in touch with us, as always, with your questions. And if you want your question put to the e-Spurs team every week, get in touch with us via Twitter and Facebook at e_Spurs and Facebook e-Spurs page. On to the final part of the podcast tonight, guys, which is, of course, the preview for next weekend's game, Sunday game against Southampton. Of course, 2 games left now, our last game of the season at the Lane. And you would expect, Rick, it'd be celebratory mood at the Lane.
Well, I hope so. I'm trying to get a ticket at the moment, but I want to be there purely because the reason why I do want to be there is just to try and say what an incredible season it's been, and that shouldn't be forgotten. I really do hope it's a sellout. People may argue that we haven't got much to play for. Listen, if we can win against Southampton, we've finished above Arsenal, something we haven't done for a very, very long time. And when you look at, in comparative to what they've spent against us, it shouldn't be happening. So that just shows you how far this squad have come. It's a huge game. It's Pochettino's old club, so they won't be wanting to do us any favours. And yeah, it will be, I'm sure, a fantastic atmosphere at White Hart Lane. I don't think, even like I say, the reaction afterwards, even though we knew the title had gone mathematically against obviously Chelsea, there was such a fantastic reaction from the Spurs fans. It really, really, really is such a great time to be a fan of the club. There's so much to look forward to in the summer. I'm sure we may get a couple of marquee signings in as a possibility, but then Poch being Poch, he may want to favour the youth again. So it's interesting to see what we do towards the summer. But no, it'll be a great atmosphere against Southampton, and it's only fitting that the fans hopefully will send us off, or should I say the players will send us off with a win.
Yeah, it'd be lovely, wouldn't it? And I mean, Ian, we saw in recent weeks Southampton are a really good side this season under Koeman. Is there a slight danger that now we've secured Champions League football, is there a slight danger of sort of after the Lord Mayor's show and maybe taking Southampton a bit too lightly?
I don't think that will happen because it's Poch's old side. And you know, whenever you come up against a previous employer, you always want to show them your worth. And I think that I don't think Poch will allow them to go out there with anything but a win-win attitude for not only themselves but for the fans as well. And you know, I agree with everything that's been said tonight about the, you know, how good that the relationship has been between the fans and the team. And I think that the team will want to send us off with a cheer and, you know, an acknowledgement of what has been in effect a fantastic season for us.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think it'll be a really entertaining game also, Jay. And Southampton, they're not really I mean, this season we've seen team after team after team put 11 men behind the ball when they come to the lane. However, Southampton don't strike you necessarily as the type of team that would do that, do they? They seem the type of team that would want to play their own football.
Yeah, I mean, they were very impressive, weren't they, against Manchester City last week. And a couple of, you know, very impressive when they played Liverpool and came back from behind.
Yeah.
And Mane has real pace. They may play a little bit Leicesterish and, you know, try and use Tadic and Mane's pace on the break. But they need the win as well because they seem to genuinely want to try and have a go at European football. When you talked about how many teams seem to hate us, there's another one, isn't it? Southampton haven't got a proper derby anymore with Portsmouth going down, so it's always seems to be right. We'll have a go at Tottenham ever since we took Glenn Hoddle from them and Dean Richards, and from that moment on, they seem to be the next ones that have had a problem with us.
and good old Harry, of course.
Yeah, and good old Harry and everything like that. So, but I think we'll be well and truly up for it. There's plenty still to play for, isn't there? We'll just get that second spot, make sure we finish above Arsenal, make sure we get the Premier League points record for us, and then, you know, try and get that done and dusted in front of our own supporters on Saturday.
Yeah,
Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the Spurs players will feel a sense of wanting to give the Spurs fans something on that day. I don't think they owe us anything, certainly not after Monday night, but I think because they didn't get the win on Monday night, they'll want to give a win to the fans to finish off the season at White Hart Lane. I mean, it's just been a fantastic season, so you can imagine the scenes at the Lane on Sunday. Hopefully we'll get a similar atmosphere to the games that we experienced so far at the Lane. We've been fantastic, the fans, this season, and it's been great to see. I tell you what, let's get some predictions, lads. Let's go across the board and get some predictions for Southampton on Sunday. Almost said Monday there because it's a novelty not playing on a Monday after the last month or so. Southampton on Sunday. Rick, your prediction?
Oh, okay. I see it being close again. I know I keep saying like a broken record. I say 2 on every week, but all right, let's change it up. Let's go 3-2 Spurs. I see they're possibly in goals. No, we haven't conceded many, but Southampton are a good team and Long's on form, so I'm going to go 3-2 Spurs. 3-2
Spurs. Just remembered, of course, there's the Alderweireld connection there. So there's still connections between Spurs and Southampton there, so there's certainly going to be other agendas going on in the game and players wanting to win for different reasons, so it's going to be a great game. Ian, your prediction?
Well, I was going to say 3-2 and Rick beat me to it. I think I'm going to go 1-0 Spurs. You know, I think that it's going to be tight. It's going to be open, but it's going to be tight, and I think that it'll be decided on the odd goal, and I'm hopeful that we'll get it. So 1-0 Spurs.
1-0 Spurs. I'm sure we'll all very much settle for that. And Jay, your prediction for Sunday?
All right, I'll take the 2-1 option in that case. I'll have the 2-1 option. But the only thing is, it's very difficult to make a prediction when we've got no idea what type of team we'll be playing.
Yeah, absolutely,
No Dier, no Dembele, no Ali, no Walker, no Lamella. And Pochettino maybe sitting in the stands upstairs. So, a bit difficult. I'll wait until I see the team line up before I have a real gut feeling. Yeah,
it's a great point. Very sensible. Something we hadn't even spoken about there is that we could be, fielding practically a reserve side on Sunday. So interesting to see what the team is. I'm sure there'll be a few comments about it either way on Twitter when it's announced on Sunday. But it should be a great game, and let's hope we secure that second place. And lads, it's been a pleasure as always. Don't forget, guys, if you want to get in touch with us via Twitter or Facebook, you can do at @e_Spurs or e-Spurs page on Facebook. Give us a like on there, and of course you can, as we always say, get in touch with the lads direct through their Twitter accounts, which we advertise via the e-Spurs Twitter account when the show goes live each week, so you can have your say direct. All that leaves me to say is thanks to Ricky, to Ian and to Jace. We'll be back after Southampton next Sunday. Other than that, guys,